Let's talk about body language, specifically facial expressions, specifically micro expressions. Now, as we all know, yesterday was the hearing that determined whether or not the grand jury indictment was going to be thrown out, and the judge decided no, that it would stay. When I watch these court proceedings, I'm typically watching Kohberger's body language. And I know we don't get an awful lot of shots of him because that's just what the judge has decided. But when we do, I like to pay attention to his body language. And in the beginning of yesterday's hearing, pretty much straight through until when the judge uh, spoke and said what his decision was, his body language was pretty confident. His shoulders and his back are straight. His jawline is relaxed. He's steepling his hands, which is typically a sign of leadership and confidence. So you can tell that he's trying to portray, if not feeling, confident. Here he is after. I'm going to play a couple seconds of this, and I want you to watch. I want you to watch his jawline.
Well, I hope you all got a touch of Idaho history and the law and how it works, and our Idaho.
His shoulders are rolled forward, sort of like a sign of defeat. But right here, you see that right here, the way it's pronounced? That's usually that's him gritting his teeth, or what is that? His jawline has now tensed. And that's typically a sign of anger. We grind our teeth, our jaws become tense, typically as a way to prevent ourselves from reacting or lashing out verbally, or lashing out physically. It's a way to channel the frustration so that we don't explode. Now, I found this especially interesting because while I was after I watched the hearing, I did a search for body language experts who may have watched Kohberger in certain hearings and given an analysis of his body language. And I found one that I found fascinating. This is a psychiatrist and body language expert, and he's analyzing Bryan Kohberger's body language at one of the earlier hearings. I will put a link to this YouTube in the video description. Pay attention to his jawline.
What we're going to be looking at now is him being read the charges. Now, I want to watch the jaw because what we see, one of his tells in terms of that he's feeling something is that he clenches his jaw. That can be associated with stress, can also be associated with anger. I can't say which one he's feeling, but he's feeling something. Let's see if there's a pattern to when that happens.
About November, did unlawfully enter a residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder.
As you can see right now, he's pretty composed. We're not seeing a whole lot of body language about this so far, but let's keep watching. Let's briefly watch the intensity of his reactions when you go through each person. I'm just going to show a little clip, but I'm going to show a little clip of each one. Watch this.
Kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogan, from which she died.
Very little reaction, looking down for the most part.
Kill and murder Kayla Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing Kayla Gonzalez, from which she died. Count 4.
All right, mostly looking down. Didn't seem to be much clenching.
Kill and murder Zena Kernodle. Excuse me. This is hard. I'm sorry. Zena Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing Zena Kernodle, from which she died.
You see a lot of jaw clenching and him looking up and down.
Kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing Ethan Chapin, from which he died.
And he looks more calm during this one than any of the other ones. But there doesn't seem to be that same level of tension. Now, does this mean he did it? Not necessarily, but it does mean he was feeling different things when the 4 different names were read.
So I found his reaction to Xana's name being read to be very, very intriguing. Now, when we talk about this case, we often talk about it as Maddie or Kaylee being the target, and I still think they are the target. But it's interesting to see his reaction to Xana's name. Now, I don't think Xana was a target, but something about Xana evoked an emotional reaction in him. And I'm wondering what it is. Because, like I said, when that teeth clenching, it's usually a sign of anger, if not rage. Now, the reason why this particular video sort of like caught my attention is because I was in a TikTok live with Body Movement. Now, if you've ever seen Don't Fuck with Cats on Netflix about the Luca Magnotta case, Body Movement is one of the online investigators that helped law enforcement identify and eventually capture Luca Magnotta. And she and I were talking about the overkill statement and which victim we thought was suffered the overkill. And I said Kaylee, and I gave the reasons that I gave in my video that I had posted earlier, that her father said that she was both assaulted and attacked, and because it took so long for her parents to be notified. And Body said it just as easily could have been Xana. And then she cited a certain line in the PCA. And it was this line: OFC Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Xana Kernodle's. Now, what Body said was none of the other victims were described as having been identified through items or IDs. It was only Xana who was described as having been identified by personal items and an ID in the PCA. And so she's suggesting that maybe it was Xana who suffered the overkill, which would go along with watching Kohberger's reaction to when Xana's name was mentioned. And like I've always said, I never believed that Xana or Ethan ran into the suspect. I never believed that. And I always wondered why, if he came down the stairs and nobody was there, why didn't he just leave? He must have gone straight to Xana's room, in my opinion. Could he, when Xana's name's brought up, could he be feeling contempt or resentment because he feels like, oh, if I had just left, if she hadn't done this, if I didn't hear her, I wouldn't have had to do that. I could have left earlier. I wouldn't have run into the other roommate. And the other roommate wouldn't have seen me. And, whatever. Could that be the source of the reaction that he has to Xana's name? Or have we been sort of thinking about this all wrong and Xana was the original target? I want to hear what you think. Do you think she was the original target? Do you think that hearing her name made him feel some sort of contempt because he felt like she's the reason he got caught? What are you thinking? I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments.